According to the latest South African Demographic and Health Survey, up to 70% of women and a third of men are classified as overweight or obese. Excess body weight is a huge problem globally and especially in South Africa. However, this is no longer just an adult problem. 13% of South African children are overweight or obese, which is more than double the global average of 5%. 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 4 boys between the ages of 2 and 14 years are overweight or obese. Now, excess body weight was directly associated with around 4 million deaths globally in 2015. The National Obesity Week is commemorated from the 15th to the 19th of October to increase awareness about the impact of obesity in the lives of South Africans and to promote a shared and very important message that breakfast is the best way to start your day. So today we discuss obesity, and our guests include the Director of Nutrition for the National Department of Health, a specialist physician and endocrinologist, and owner of South Africa's premier fitness education institute called FitPro. You can tweet us at SABC Health Talk or simply just interact with us on our Facebook page, SABC Health Talk. So sit back, relax, and learn from this bumper show ahead. Coming to you just after a short break. I'm Dr. Silla Mutau, and this is Health Talk.
Life can throw all sorts of surprises at you, often when you least expect it.
Sorry, Mom.
That's why it's important to have medical cover. Me? I didn't want just any medical scheme. I wanted a scheme that I could rely on, that I could talk to at any time, that I could afford. I didn't just get medical aid. I got medical paid.
The real good thing about this investment summit is that a number of companies are going to be making pronouncements on the investments that they are going to be making in our economy.
The International Investment Summit, debating ways and means to rebuild the country's economy, at the Sandton Convention Center on Friday. For comprehensive coverage of the summit, watch SABC News, listen to SABC Radio, or follow at SABC News online.
While many people struggle with obesity from when they are young, this was not the case for Nonhlanhla Moloi from Soweto Deep Kloof.
Chips, ramen chips and fried meat, yeah. Fried meat, pap, all this type of food of gaining any weight, yeah.
A lot contributed to her weight gain.
I think it's food. I ate a lot due to stress probably, because when I started working, I realized I'm stressing a lot due to hard work and stuff.
Her journey to losing weight has been very costly.
I'm actually still on the process now, because I've tried Nzamile, Juromine, Lino Drops, Slim and Trim, my herbal tea. I'm still in a process now, I'm trying to lose weight, but it looks like I said it's not working.
Weight gain has a huge impact on Moloi's health.
It has affected me due to I can't go long distances anymore. Like I get tired very quickly, short breath, yeah. And I think it's also my back, it's just can't take this weight.
Many in Moloi's shoes have opted for gym.
I have not considered gym. I don't have time. I'm working. So by the time I knock off, I can't actually gym nights out. I think I'll stick to these things and like my herbal tea and stuff.
Another option could be controlling her diet.
I've tried, but along the way, I think, I stop and then eat as normal. Maybe I go back to my fatty food. Yeah, tried eating our green salad, eating I even bought blender. A blender just choosing formers, juice and stuff like that to juice whatever, maybe vegetables. Hi, it's angikwazi ukuyusa.
All right, so let's learn more about this problem of obesity, and it's a great pleasure to introduce our guest today. First up is Reboni Ntsiye, who's Director of Nutrition from the National Department of Health. Welcome to Health Talk, Reboni.
Thank you.
All right, and of course we also have Dr. Raina Dyer. Now, Dr. Dyer is a specialist physician and endocrinologist from Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital. Welcome to Health Talk,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Dyer.
Thank you.
Right, let's stay with you. Let's just define exactly what it is that we're talking about. What is obesity?
So obesity in simple terms is really an accumulation of fat in the body, which then leads to detrimental effects not only on the individual's health and well-being.
Okay, so you often hear obesity, overweight, fat. What are the correct terms to use, and how do you actually differentiate between all of these?
Okay, so when we classify obesity, we do this using the World Health Organization's classification using a body mass index.
Yeah.
So we take the person's weight and we divide that by the height squared.
Yeah.
So anything from 18 to 24.9 is normal. 25 to 30 is classified as overweight. 30 to 35 is obese,
yeah.
And then thereafter there's different grades of obesity. So there's class 1, class 2, class 3 obesity, which is really colloquially known as morbid obesity.
So let's try and simplify that BMI story that you started. You said it's height divided by height squared, but for people that want to understand it a little better, the other way, I suppose you could say you take your height in kilograms, divide by your weight in kilograms, divide by your height, and take that figure, divide again by your height.
Yes.
Would that work?
Yes.
Okay, to get the final answer, which is BMI.
Yes.
Okay, right. So let's understand from the department's perspective. I mean, I was sharing some statistics now which indicate that this is a problem. How does the department see this problem of obesity?
Indeed, this is a huge concern to the department and to the country as a whole. It's actually a global problem. Almost all the countries in the world are affected by obesity. Excess body weight is one of the major challenging problems that the world has encountered. Of course, then we take that in that light as the department, and we have developed a strategy for the prevention and control of obesity to try and really make sure that we decrease and reduce and control obesity. But also we have the strategy for non-communicable diseases, because obesity is a major risk factor for non-communicable diseases. So within the strategy for prevention and control of obesity, we have a number of interventions that we are implementing to deal with this challenge. And just before I outline the interventions, I want to say we have used a multi-sectoral approach, and it's across the life cycle. So it's not only focusing at health, at clinical, but it looks at different factors, sectors, and the society as a whole.
All right. So Dr. Dyer, I mean, she mentions this whole notion of it being a risk factor for non-communicable disease.
Yes.
I'd like us to touch on that a little, but before that, let's just clarify one other aspect. We spoke about BMI as a measure of obesity, but there's this notion of abdominal obesity. Please just take us through that.
So abdominal or visceral obesity is what's around, typically now females, around the waist. And it's been shown that that is actually the primary or the worst type of obesity that increases your cardiovascular risk.
So
and
how do people know that they have abdominal obesity?
So we have cutoffs that we use to diagnose. So looking at 88 and 102 centimeters in males and females.
Okay. And how exactly, where do you put the tape? Because sometimes people say, no, I just look at my waist around the area where the belt is. Some people will talk about, no, it's actually not there. Where do people actually measure abdominal circumference?
So it really is around the waist, but looking at the bony prominence from the one side right around to the other side, and then we take the measurement from there.
Okay, and just to get that story again clear, we're saying that as a female, you shouldn't be more than 88 centimeters, And as a male, it shouldn't be more than?
102.
102. All right. So why do we worry about obesity? She's just hinted that, look, it's a major risk factor for non-communicable disease. What does that mean, and what sort of diseases?
So there are a whole host of health complications related to obesity.
Right.
And just to mention a few, we're looking at around 80 to 90% of obese patients will eventually develop diabetes. We have around 2.3 million individuals diagnosed with diabetes in South Africa. Not only are you at a higher risk of diabetes, generally speaking, but also obese females are at a much higher risk of developing gestational diabetes, which is diabetes in pregnancy, which means that they are an additional risk in terms of complications, not only for the mom, but for the baby as well. Obese patients are also at higher risk of hypertension, depression, obstructive sleep apnea. They are a much higher risk of cancers, a whole host of cancers, cardiovascular disease, and the rate of mortality is higher than the general population.
So is there something like cumulative risk? Let's say somebody says, yeah, okay, I'm obese, my BMI is over 30 or whatever it is, but I just smoke. I don't do all of these other things, but I don't have high blood pressure, so I should be okay.
No, so these risk factors all compound on each other, elevating your cardiovascular risk even further.
Right.
So we're looking at hypertension, diabetes, smoking, high cholesterol. All of these then add on to your cardiovascular risk.
So I shared the trends, basically that, you know, it's a problem that's affecting females in South Africa, and we're seeing that affecting children. Just from your perspective, what are the trends? What trends have we seen over time in terms of, you know, obesity and overweight?
If we look at the previous statistics, actually for the past decade, the rate or prevalence of overweight and obesity have been increasing, both in adults and in children. But of most concern is the rate at which the childhood obesity or overweight is increasing is quite rapid, meaning it's too fast. So more and more our children are becoming overweight and obese. To share the statistics that you have mentioned earlier on, indeed, around 68% of women in South Africa are overweight and obese. But of concern is that the prevalence of obesity is much higher, especially the one for morbid obesity, which is around 25 of the percentage of people that are obese. 25% of them are actually having severe obesity, which is a major risk factor. So even though we are saying for men it's better because it's 31%, if you compare it to the global average, it's quite high, because the global average for men is around 13-14%. So you can see we are actually much higher. So obesity is a huge problem for us in the country, and it has been increasing over the past 10 years. Hence, as the department, we have taken more drastic measures to deal with it. To implement more interventions to try and assist to reduce the prevalence of overweight and obesity.
Just staying there with you, there's this whole notion of, you know, people's attitude and beliefs around, you know, obesity. There's some sections of the community that believe that, perhaps as a female, you can't look thin. Because then it's either that, you know, you're not you're sick, or you're not healthy, or that sort of thing. And as men, you need to have a pot belly. Just take us through some of those.
Indeed, there are a number of drivers for overweight and obesity. One of them being that attitude, knowledge, culture, and perceptions. But we have other factors like environmental health factors, lack of nutrition knowledge, lack of physical activity, and so on. But just to talk about the one on knowledge, attitude, and perceptions and culture, these are just beliefs, indeed, from my culture as well. I know my mother-in-law becomes happy when I come home and I'm a little bit fat, and she said, oh, you look like Masoho's mom now, you know. So those are cultures, but people need to be aware and be given information, because one of the problems is lack of information, that this is a risk factor for diseases. Like we are saying, if the higher the BMI, or the more you are overweight and obese, the more are the risks of you actually contracting these diseases that the doctor spoke about, and the chances of one dying prematurely are high. So people need to be educated so that we can know that this culture or these perceptions that we have need to be changed.
Yeah, it's not cool to be obese.
Yes.
All right. I think it's a good note to go for a break on. And when we come back, we talk about, causes and risk factors. Please stay with us.
We pride ourselves on being impartial as well as independent. On the agenda, we basically break down the stories of the day.
Give the viewer the assurance that we will cover every side of the story.
Tear gas has now been also thrown at the protesters.
We are peacefully marching and the police is stopping the people. They're hitting the people. We are spraying the people with pepper spray. These people are supposed to protect us, but they are against us.
We are pushing them back by using the rubber bullets because we cannot allow them to block the roads and damage other people's property.
Quite important to bring on board all sides and hear what everybody has to say about the story, especially being the public broadcaster.
All in all, we basically take the news agenda of the day forward.
Mkonza from Deep Kloof, Soweto, has always been struggling with her weight.
As a child, I was a bit chubby. And then as I grew up, I became like fat from eating bad foods, chips, kota, and then those random chips, and sweets, chocolate, every day, ice cream.
Mkonza's parents tried to intervene.
They did. Me being a male, because they did tell me to eat food that were healthy and stop drinking cold drink because beniphuza each and every day. I didn't. I would steal it, niphuzeling apparently, and then come back. They told me to drink a lot of water before eating, and I didn't.
Like many young women, Mkonza has tried a few costly ways to lose weight.
I've tried gym. I couldn't. And then I tried Hlasela Mafuta. I see it working because sadly, as I used to eat before, young lambisa like at all. And then I've tried Amachi tablets now. They're working. Yeah, I know a difference.
A normal visit to the clinic was a wake-up call for Mkonza.
I have been to the clinic. Being a weight issue, I went for something else, and then they told me that I must lose weight because I might have heart problems and high blood and all that. Yeah, the doctor advised me to lose weight, yeah.
Since her visit to the clinic, Mkonza claims to have tried even harder to lose weight.
I was wearing size 46, now I'm wearing 44, so I see improvement.
But it hasn't been easy.
I am trying, but it's hard because I eat it maybe like once a week, and then during the week I eat healthy food. Then yeah.
All right. Before we start talking about what is it that people can do and what others are doing to try and lose weight, let's try and understand in the first place why some people gain weight. perhaps in an abnormal way. We still have our guest, Dr. Raina Dyer, who's a specialist physician and endocrinologist based at Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital. And of course, we have Reboni Nziye, who's Director of Nutrition from the National Department of Health. And we're now joined by Derek Archer. Derek is owner of South Africa's premier fitness education institute called FitPro, and is going to tell us a bit about what they do. Welcome to Health Talk, Derek.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. So before, I will come to you now, but let's just come back to you, Dr. Dyer. We're talking about what are the risk factors for obesity? Are there any genetic factors, perhaps? If your parents are obese, are you likely to be obese genetically?
Yes, so when we look at obesity, there's no single one cause. It's related to diet obesity. There are certain individuals that have a genetic predisposition to obesity. We also have to look at whether there's any underlying medical conditions that predispose to obesity. So, example, hypothyroidism.
But before we get there, let's talk about that genetic predisposition. Is it really about the genes, or is it about other factors, lifestyle factors that the family perhaps adopts, that children tend to then, grow up in that environment and become obese?
Yes, so it's both. So certain people will be genetically more predisposed to obesity, having the same diet as someone who's not. But yes, so it's genetic predisposition on top of lifestyle.
Okay, you mentioned other medical conditions.
Yes, so hypothyroidism, Cushing's disorder, growth hormone deficiency. There's a whole host of mental disorders that predispose you to obesity. And then we also, unfortunately, some of the drugs we use do cause people to put on weight, but not to the extent of being morbidly obese. Predominantly, then, it's really a combination of these factors, but really on the backbone of a poor diet and lifestyle.
Talk about poor diet and lifestyle. Perhaps that talks to you, Reboni. We've heard people talk about, well, I've been eating. Almost in all the 2 clips that we played, there's reference there to nutrition, poor diet, and all of that. Can you just take us through what are the risk factors or causes of obesity as far as nutrition is concerned?
These are complex because it's not only about the individual.
Right.
It's also about the environment in which people live in.
Right.
What is available and what is accessible, what is affordable. If we could remember on the clips, the individuals that were shown, they are willing and they do want to lose weight, and they see that it's a problem and they're aware of it, and they experience the inconveniences of overweight and obesity. But the environment around them is also not very conducive, because food that is easily available or accessible, agotas and simpas and so on that they were talking about.
Maybe let's talk about what are those bad foods then that are risk factors for obesity? Or is there anything such as bad food?
All foods fit, because remember, when we eat, we also eat for enjoyment. We must enjoy a variety of meals. That's one of the South African food-based dietary guidelines that we must follow. So we must eat healthy food, then we must enjoy the food, and we must eat variety. But we must control our portion. However, having said that, there are also bad food that I can say generally will contribute much more to overweight and obesity, and hence we must avoid them. High sugar intake, all the foods, sweets and drinks or beverages that are high in sugar is a problem. Foods and drinks and all that, especially foods that are high in fat, particularly trans fat and saturated fats, and foods that are high in salt as well. Those are the problems. So basically, those are the foods that we can say these are bad, and we need to avoid them.
Foods that are high in trans fats?
Most of the processed food, actually, everything that comes in a package is processed. So most of the processed foods, they are having such high fat, high sugar, and so on. So the best thing is to eat foods that are natural. Less packaged food, the better. In their natural form as much as possible. We must eat in a natural form. So if you think of things that people are talking about, most of them, they are processed foods that they have mentioned. So I think we need to go back to our basics, go back to our roots, where we didn't have chocolates and sweets and all these other things that have been mentioned that people are saying they're eating every day.
What about the issue of smoking, other lifestyle factors, smoking and alcohol intake? Do they contribute at all?
they do contribute. Particularly, I'll talk about alcohol, because alcohol has high calories. Calories is what we use to measure the energy in food, you know, and if you don't use it, of course, you will store it. So we need energy for food, but if you don't use that energy, you don't exert it, then it will be stored as in the form of fat in your body, whatever that is not used. So alcohol has high calories. So, and unfortunately, like any sugary beverages, people tend to take more, you know. So the more you take, the more calories you pick up, and unfortunately, most people do very little physical activity in our country.
We'll talk about physical activity. That's how Derek comes in. First of all, Derek, just tell us a little about FitPro. What is FitPro?
Okay, FitPro is an accredited training provider of fitness education. So we train individuals to work in the fitness industry. There's personal trainers, group trainers, Pilates instructors. And then once they're qualified, we then provide them with continued education to keep them current with what the market demands on, what the health demands are.
Right. So you train others that will train the public, so to say.
That is correct, yes.
All right. So there's talk of, I mean, obviously we're talking about why is it that people, you know, gain weight and become morbidly obese,
yes,
as it were. Insofar as physical activity is concerned, we heard that, okay, on the one side is the food and the environment, but on the other side is the activity levels. Just your thoughts around what is it that's causing obesity?
Right. As far as the research has also shown, and what the current trends are like, the amount of activity that people are engaging in, everyday physical activity, is very low. In fact, it's too low, which has led to a classification of someone being sedentary. And a sedentary lifestyle is associated with a lot of non-communicable diseases, obesity being one of them as well, and the comorbidities, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, dyslipidemia, and so on. And we're seeing that through all the age groups, from children right through to adulthood, the amount of physical activity that people are engaging in is getting less and less. Sometimes it's a time management issue, work-related and so on. Maybe in the school level, or children that are school-going children, they're no longer forced physical activity or PT classes and that type of thing. And also just our lifestyles, we're sitting indoors watching screens, we're on computers. And
that's a growing problem for children, isn't it? So?
That is. And, you know, people associate physical activity with, a lot of times, with discomfort and so on, or going to a gym or doing a sport, as opposed to just getting up and taking a walk.
Yeah. I'd like us to touch a little more on that, because we've heard, obviously there was reference to gym, and I don't have time for gym and all of that. Yeah. But that we're going to continue with after the break. Okay, time for a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue our subject on obesity and try and unpack this whole notion of preventing obesity. Please stay with us.
We are in the fourth industrial revolution.
Things aren't the same anymore.
Technology is taking over much of what we do. That includes how we make payments.
Blockchain is the future.
On Network, we have robots, hackathons, and tech entrepreneurs.
Making sure that your business is well known across all borders. We use social media.
That's Network with me, Pumela Zondi, on Saturdays at 20:30 and Sundays at 17:30.
Our shops are being looted while they are attacking us. They set this club here on fire, and no firefighters came to fight them. If they want to fight drug dealers, they have ways to fight the drug dealers, not police. The police is police job.
It is about the drugs on our streets. This problem has been here for more than 20 years.
The Great Bank Heist. It was brazen. It was quick.
One thought we're perhaps looking at figures much lower. Right. It's almost 2 billion.
It was shared amongst very greedy VBS executives and politically connected individuals. You are listed in that report. Did you steal money?
The narrative that they're trying to create is proven wrong by Advocate Mtao's report himself. He said in point 59 that he could not find a definitive wrongdoing, anything factually.
The misleading information which Daily Maverick has is deliberate. It's part of the whole propaganda machinery. You can challenge this Van Veek to bring us the so-called evidence that I received 10 million. It's pure insanity.
Is there any prospect whatsoever of saving VBS?
We are not as confident as we were when we started the curatorship as to restoring the bank.
The bank is in a hopeless situation and it cannot be saved.
Okay, welcome back and thank you so much for staying with us. We're discussing obesity with our guests, Reboni Nziye, Director of Nutrition at the Department of Health, Dr. Reina Daya, Specialist Physician and Endocrinologist at Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital, Derek Archer, owner of FitPro. Okay, so Dr. Daya, we were talking about, obviously we've spoken about the causes and risk factors, and we're starting a very important segment now, that is prevention. How do we prevent this? And I would imagine the first thing that people should do is to know whether or not they are obese or not obese. Okay, let's talk about screening.
Okay, so people can go to their local clinic, to their family practitioners, to their GPs to have themselves checked in terms of their body mass index.
Yeah.
If they have any symptoms of diabetes, they can get a finger prick check. If they're pregnant, especially a simple urine test done to look for sugar in the urine or gestational diabetes can go a long way in terms of preventing complications both to the mom and to the baby.
Okay. Interesting that you spoke about pregnancy. Is that necessarily a risk factor for obese after birth of the baby?
Yeah, so the vast or almost half of patients diagnosed with diabetes in pregnancy will then eventually go on to develop diabetes outside of pregnancy.
Yeah, so I'm just talking about pregnancy and obesity generally.
So obesity is one of the risk factors for to get diabetes in pregnancy.
All right, okay. So of course then we mentioned other medical conditions associated as risk factors for obesity.
Yeah, so
what you're basically saying is get checked.
Get checked.
Yeah.
There's a simple few tests that we can do to exclude any underlying medical condition.
Right.
And if we've given you the clear for all of those, then it's all just prevention in terms of lifestyle and modification.
Okay. Lifestyle modification, I think this is where we need to spend quite a bit of time on. Let's start with the nutrition aspect. Yes, of course, the point has been made that this is not just, we can't just look at things in silos, that they all interrelated. But let's unpack nutrition.
Okay.
Yeah.
When coming to nutrition, I did mention that there are a number of interventions that the Department of Health is implementing. One of them that everybody or most people will know about is the health promotion levy that is called the sugar tax. It's actually to try and reduce the consumption of sugary sweetened beverages because we know they contribute towards the development of overweight and obesity. But the other issue is around educating and providing information to the general population, awareness creation. You'll remember that this week is the National Nutrition, last week was the National Nutrition Week, and this week is the National Obesity Week. And we have been running a campaign from the 9th of October until yesterday, the 19th of October, talking about starting your day with breakfast, because people tend to skip breakfast thinking they want to lose weight, only to find that when you don't eat breakfast, you actually create the more problems, because you tend to eat much more when you start to eat, and you don't actually even think about what is it that you're going to eat, because you want to just deal with your hunger. But the other one problem that we have realized and we are educating people around is portion control. The portion is distorted. You find mega, bigger sizes, king size, double size, add up, all those things. So people tend to have lost the sense, what is the actual correct size of a portion?
But that's a difficult one, isn't it so? Because, it also depends on the size of the plate, isn't it?
It also depends on the size of the plate. But people have actually also started eating more away from home than at home, So as you go out and buy food, you find that the portion sizes are becoming bigger and bigger. And that is one of also the major contributing factors. And if you realize, if you go to any retail store, you find that the number of products have actually increased. For example, we used to have 5, 6 or so products for breakfast. Now you find the whole aisle.
All of them suited?
All of them suited. And also availability, accessibility, you know, all those things. So those are all the things that we need to educate the public about in terms of what to choose and what will be better off.
That's exactly what I'd like us to come back to later.
Okay.
Practical tips in terms of what to avoid, what to pick, and so on. But let's talk physical activity now. Before that, you mentioned earlier a link, you know, during the break, a link between smoking and physical activity. Just take us through that.
The general, as a general public, we understand the harms and risks of smoking, and you know, a lot of people say, "Well, I don't smoke," but they're in a state where they're not actually active, so they're physically inactive, obviously predisposing themselves to the obesity and the things we've mentioned earlier. But there has been an equation done that has shown that your physical inactivity for a day is the equivalent to smoking 2 or 3 cigarettes. That's in terms of the damage it does to your arteries.
Very scary.
So your body, being a highly adaptive organism, needs to be stimulated, needs to have a certain amount of stress, physical stress, to keep everything working smoothly. So by not being active, we have the loss of elasticity of your arteries and so on, which is basically the same effect of smoking.
Okay, so let's keep it practical then in terms of physical activity. What should people be aiming to do in terms of being physically active? Does it mean having to join a gym?
No, it doesn't. One must understand that when we talk about physical activity, there's physical activity for health benefits and there's physical activity for fitness in terms of what we see on the magazine covers, looking aesthetically pleasing or sports competition, that kind of thing. Just from a health perspective, the indications are for a normal healthy adult to participate in at least 150 minutes to 300 minutes a week of activity. So literally 30 to 60 minutes a day of cardiovascular activity of moderate intensity. So if we had to rate it on a scale out of 10, a 6 out of 10 in terms of difficulty, where you're still able to maintain a conversation. So walking around, basically, walking, taking opportunity to walk at lunch times and so on. That's the kind of activity we're looking at. You don't need
a bit of a brisk walk as opposed to a stroll. Is that what you're saying?
A bit of a brisk walk. You want your heart rate to increase, definitely. And you know, that combined, if you're able to do some sort of resistance training and stuff as well, that's to keep you physically strong or functionally strong, that's also a huge benefit as well.
So in terms of resistance training outside of a gym environment, what can people do generally?
Simple things using body weight, even sitting up from a seated position on a chair, standing up, lowering yourself down slowly, so basically a squat, lunges, going up and down stairs. That, as well as increasing your cardiovascular component, does stress your leg muscles out a bit. Push-ups, or varying degrees of push-ups. There are push-ups that allow for modifications of a push-ups that allow for different levels of ability, with different ability levels, and even carrying shopping bags. You know, while you're carrying a shopping bag, or carrying your bags, stress one side of the body, keep your body up nice and straight. Be aware of your posture. Those kind of things. That would all work to strengthen your entire structure.
So a variety of stuff.
Correct.
I think the one important issue is commitment or adherence. I mean, I hate using the word adherence.
Yes.
But you heard in the previous clip that we played, somebody saying, look, you know, I just don't have time for exercise.
Yeah.
What's your advice in that regard?
The beauty with exercise, especially cardiovascular, the cardiovascular exercise, that the effects of exercise are cumulative. So everyone has 10 minutes in the day where they can walk around a couple of times a day. So the time that we mentioned just now, 30 to 60 minutes a day, that can be broken up into batches of 10 minutes. If you are doing a brisk walk for 10 minutes, you can go and sit down at your computer again or do your work and get up and walk again a bit later on, and cumulatively build up that time during the day, you will still achieve the same effect. So time management, you need to adjust it, because at the end of the day, I think if you ask most people, are you scared of dying? And they go, yes. And you are exposing ourselves, or we're predisposing ourselves to factors or elements that can affect bring about early death.
Okay. Rebecca, we had practical tips in terms of what physical activity, you know, walking, brisk walking, going up the stairs and so on. Let's come back to the foods, practical tips in terms of what to avoid, what to normally, you know, do on a regular basis, yeah?
Okay. I'll start with children. Actually, it starts quite early. I'll not talk to pre-pregnancy or during pregnancy and so on, but after pregnancy, when child is born, the best thing that one can do in terms of practical things to avoid childhood overweight and obesity is actually starting with breastfeeding, particularly exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life.
Yeah.
That is a protective factor for development of overweight and obesity and other non-communicable diseases, and that carries on until adulthood. So it's one of the most important things. First thing to start with is exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months of life and continue breastfeeding up to 2 years or more. But in terms of course, school-going children, adolescents, youth, and adults, starting your day with breakfast, and it doesn't have to be bacon and egg or something, just starchy food, whole grain, whole fiber, less processed breakfast, like it could be your oats, it could be your pap, it could be your leftover, cooked at home, leftover pap of yesterday, or mabele, anything that you had with the protein. Maybe it could be an egg, it could be milk, you know, so on, and it could be a vegetable, and then with a fruit, and have water. So those are basically practical things that you can start, and pack your lunch, you know, plan ahead. What is it that I'm going to have today, you know, and pack your lunch as well, so that you can avoid buying unhealthy foods. But the other thing is eating lots of fruits and vegetables. We always say eat as much as plenty of vegetables and fruit, but to give a guide, 3 to 5 a day, like maybe 2 veggies or 3 veggies and 2 fruits, you know, have your fruit as a snack, and each and every meal, at least if it has a vegetable, 1 or 2 vegetables, you know. So those are the practical. And also to take water, for example, instead of sugar-sweetened beverages, and also to eat smaller meals frequently rather than eating one large portion meals, you know. So those are some of the practical tips that you can have. But I think it's not one size fits all, and I will encourage people to also visit dietitians to use them. We do have them in our public health facilities, in our clinics, and in our community health centers, and in our hospitals.
To get practical advice. Okay, we're going to go through some of the tweets that have just come through to learn what it is that people think of the subject we're talking about today, that of obesity. We've heard that, you know, being obese is not necessarily cool. It's associated with a whole lot of problems. Let's see what Stacey says. By the way, why is it a norm for people to say to slim people to put on weight and they're too skinny and need to eat more? But if you say to someone who's obese, sorry, but you need to lose weight and they should eat less, it's like you've just killed someone. Been obese my whole life, says Wu Jan. Developed unhealthy coping mechanisms, eating disorders, etc. I'm embarrassed by this, but in July I was size 4XL t-shirt. It's October, I'm in size 2XL. Losing 26 kilograms in a few months. I have a long way to go, but I'm actually getting somewhere. Wanabiana says, I will never understand how women in super size versus super skinny can eat 1,700 calories a day and still be so thin. Here I'm staying under 600, but I'm still obese. All right. Okay, let's go for a quick break. When we come back, we talk about treatment options for obesity and the do's and don'ts. Please stay with us.
We are tired and we want people to take action. We want government to take action because women are being raped, women are being killed, women are being sexually and physically abused every day. Children are going missing.
See men at the forefront of this march is what softens the heart and makes us all feel proud of the type of men that we have in our country.
Here, the rates of violence against women and children are alarmingly high. Enough is enough.
As democracy matures, we get into discussing very, very sensitive issues.
I think that there's a lot of people that are applauding it. I'm sure it's going to be appealed.
It is the beginning of a long journey of South Africa fighting racism.
That sticky label of being a white party, so to speak, doesn't seem to want to go away.
So the competition actually helps and it brings out winning in total.
Stay tuned to Media Monitor every Sunday from 9 a.m.
Special assignment. Crime keeps the society in terror and pain. Why so?
If someone phones me, tells me, okay, look, I need a server, and I get you all driving, I'll take it.
What pushes normal people to be so hard, heartless, and brutally kill one another?
The other side of it could be more for their own psychological need. It might be part of a sexual fantasy that they have. It could be about power and control.
After proper investigation is followed, the perpetrator gets arrested.
It's quite a massive process. And ultimately, they have payments, right? Trust is deserved.
Emotional scars remain.
We would pay any price to get him back, and the sad reality is that it's gone.
Special assignment. We unravel the truth every Sunday at 21:30.
Welcome back. We're talking obesity with our special guest, Dr. Raina Daya, endocrinologist and specialist physician based at Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital, Reboni Nziye, Director of Nutrition for National Department of Health, and of course, Derek Archer, owner of Fitpro. Okay, Dr. Daya, of course, prevention is always better than cure.
Yes.
But there are people that may require some form of treatment for obesity. What options are there?
So we do have some pills available, so medication that we can use, and this is but over and above lifestyle in terms of diet and physical activity. Bariatric surgery is also an option that's available if we failed after lifestyle and medication. I'd like to also
But what is bariatric surgery? Just in short, what is that?
So bariatric surgery, there's various different ways of doing this, but basically it's surgery where they try and reduce the abdominal, so the stomach content. So it basically you have reduced in terms of intake as well as absorption of all your fatty foods.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned tablets.
Yes.
Where do people get weight loss tablets from? Because oftentimes you see them advertised all over the place,
yeah.
You know, in pharmacies, in street corners, yeah. And we've heard in the clip, there's some stuff that I heard for the first time.
Yeah.
I'll ask Reboni to explain to us what that is. But there's a whole lot of stuff out there that may or may not necessarily be safe.
Yes.
I'd like your comment on that.
So there are some medication that we have that is FDA approved. There are some that we use off-label but still safe. However, there are some drugs that are available from the back door or the street corners that people think there is a quick fix. There's actually no quick fix. So these medications that people are taking, A, is unsustainable, but B, these medication or these tablets do have side effects and they do cause harm to patients.
So who's entitled, let's put it that way, to treatment by medication?
So we have guidelines in terms of BMI, which class of body mass index patients can get medication. And then there's, over and above that, there's also a class that are eligible for surgery. But really, it can all just start by prevention, by starting off with correct diet and lifestyle. And then adding on, these medications can help, but on a backbone of at least a 5% weight loss.
Okay. There's lots of fad diets that are advertised. You know, lose weight quick, will offer you a diet package that you'll try for 3 days for free, and then thereafter, you know, there's miracles that are going to happen. Your comment on that?
We should remember that this is something that you want to lose weight and you want to maintain that, you know. You don't want to lose weight today and then tomorrow you have doubled the weight. So whatever program that you choose, it should be something that is sustainable. Yeah. And of course, it should be healthy as well. It shouldn't have negative or detrimental effects to your health.
Right.
In terms of treatment, of course, for weight reduction, you'll have to reduce your calorie intake, but it will depend from one individual to another. Of course, we have to start slow and progress. You can't just cut off everything at once. Yeah. Hence, people struggle to maintain because they telling themselves, I'm starting to diet on a Monday, and then they cut everything, and by Wednesday they're miserable, they go back. So it has to be...
So it's not a good idea to starve yourself?
It's not a good idea to starve yourself. It's something that you should be doing and you can do forever. So it should be healthy, and you must remember you took some time to gain the weight, so it will take you time also to get used to it should be a habit, you know. So healthy, that's why we say healthy eating habits, you know. So you need to develop healthy eating habits. And
there's a question that I just got, you know, from our crew here. Eating to your blood type and that sort of notion. Any one of you can respond to that.
Maybe I'll start, then Doctor can add if she wants to add some more. Basically, at the moment, there's no scientific evidence that one can eat according to the blood type. It's just the myth that is existing, that people are saying you can eat according to your blood type, and if you can look at that is actually basically reduction in calories. People are successful because they've changed their eating habits, they're eating much more healthier and so on, but there's no scientific basis for that. So it's not something that we can say, yes, it can be followed.
So we need to ditch that idea, because I do know that there are books published and what have you on this whole notion of blood types. But let's come back to the issue of physical activity now in trying to lose weight. Practical advice.
Okay. One thing is, we've just heard, if you're going to make any lifestyle change, it has to be done in a way that is sustainable.
Right.
And with any activity, whether we're training, whether you're a completely healthy, fit individual, every time we want to change something in the body, we need to do it in a progressive manner and in a, what we call it, through gradual progression. So the first thing to do is to start. So what do I want to do? Why am I doing this? You know, what am I trying to achieve? Am I trying to lose weight? Yes, that's fine. Let's start getting you active. What kind of activity base are you coming from? And slowly build up. It can be done in the number of steps you do per day. A lot of the phones that we utilize these days have built-in accelerometers that tell you how many steps you've done. It's one of your smartphones and so on. You can buy small pedometers and things as well. Just slowly marking an increase in your activity every day, and then build up on that every week. In a way that is stressful to the body in a positive way, but not something that you'll do it one day and you absolutely hate it and you won't do it again.
Yeah.
And like we said, it has to be a habit forming, and also to the point where you actually feel good.
Yeah.
If we train...
How about pain? You know, this notion of no pain, no gain. Should it be enjoyable or should we feel pain?
Okay. It should be... The pain that we like to try and get across to people, a sharp stabbing pain is not a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, when you walk up and down a flight of stairs and your muscles are starting to burn because your body's burning glucose and it's building up, changing the pH in your cells, that's a different kind of burn.
So slowly developing pain is okay?
It's pain that goes away. But when you have a sharp stabbing pain anywhere around the chest area particularly, not a good thing, and in your muscles.
I just so wish that we could have all the time to just talk about this for the entire show. But unfortunately, our time is very limited. We're going to go through some of the tweets that we have seen come through before we wrap up for the show. And yeah, we've, I think, covered almost all the areas. And the first one that, if we can just get it up on my screen close to me so I can read. Elusive says it is really a hard life being stunning but obese at the same time. Michael Lawrence says, this misconception among morbidly obese people that they played no part in their journey to their size is a major factor as to why they are the size that they are. Well, studies show that breastfeeding can reduce the risk of overweight and obesity in both the mother and the baby. Let's support breastfeeding moms everywhere. And that's so true because we heard that recently. The last one says, I don't think that obesity is a disease. I think that it's a natural response to an unnatural diet. Well, folk, we unfortunately have come to the end of our show. That's all the time we had, and I'd like to thank you so much for your contribution. And for you folk at home, thank you so much for watching. And he's our special guest, Roboni Nzia, Director of Nutrition from National Department of Health, Dr. Reina Daya, endocrinologist and specialist physician from Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital, and Derek Archer, founder and owner of FitPro. Okay, so this is all we have for you. We're back on the screens again next week, same time. Thank you for all the tweets that have come through. I'm Dr. Silo Mataunga. Until next time, please do take care.
As democracy matures, we get into discussing very, very sensitive issues.
I think that there's a lot of people that are applauding it. I'm sure it's going to be appealed.
It is the beginning of a long journey of South Africa fighting racism.
That sticky label of being a white party, so to speak, doesn't seem to want to go away.
So the competition actually helps, and it brings out winning in total.
Stay tuned to Media Monitor every Sunday from 9 a.m.
Hanover Park is known to be a playground for gang members. Several pupils failed to attend classes due to gang shootings.
The impact of these gang wars is that we find that learners stay away from school.
There's a lot of disruptions, but yet I try to come every day to school so that I can have a better future.
As an education department, which is not our primary mandate to address crime, we do what we can to ensure that our learners and teachers are safe in schools.
In pursuit of good results for a better future, these learners have all come here to what is commonly known as study camps. They bath, eat and sleep here. Learners believe that their sacrifices will bear fruit.
Once we give the best of our results and we get enough chance to spend with our teachers.
The local business people are giving us food, are supporting us big time.
This year we must have 100%.
The Internet of Things speaks about machines speaking to machines in order to make our lives easier. You see in the manner in which many of what we use on a daily basis has become automated. Vox Telecom says the growth of Internet of Things carries several benefits.
Our devices basically enable IT companies to extend their value-added services of providing additional value to their customers by using our devices as sensory devices on the back of our network. And that will provide additional value to their customers, not only now but also in the future.
As a result, they have launched a series of fully managed Internet of Things based solutions that will help businesses such as farmers to remotely monitor and manage their assets.
We are on the innovation edge of basically launching a new network in South Africa called Sigfox. Our devices are low power devices and their battery life is extremely long. These IoT devices enable additional security measures to be implemented into farms, businesses, homes to enable basically additional security for those areas of implementation.
Those in the technology sector in South Africa say Internet of Things will displace many jobs over the next 10 years, but many others will be created.
The jobs are one of those things that every time technology moves forward, we believe that jobs are going to finish and there's going to be no more jobs. If you think back to the industrial era, when automation came along, that was the big fear, is that there'd be no more jobs. And so every time there's a technological advance, that is our biggest concern. But if we fast forward 200 years, what we found is that there's no noticeable decrease in jobs right now as a result of those technological improvements. What we find is that people work shorter, people live longer hours, live longer lives, but they also are more healthy. So in general, society seems to improve with technology and there's no noticeable decrease in jobs.
Vox says their solutions, coupled with advanced analytics, big data collection, will bring new security options, including asset and animal tracking for farmers.
And the Internet of Things is about connecting multiple devices, and if I say multiple, I'm talking